understanding in our own well-being and management that I've really had to come to terms with, and it's taken me years. This has been lifelong work in self-development for wellness, but the last, I would say 4 years at least, has been the serious, gritty, raw work to get through the anger that comes with changes in life that reflect on a stance, maybe how strong you feel about sobriety, how strong you feel about use, how strong you feel about for or against something, right? And so getting into this, it's a really involved work, life experience kind of work, not the kind of work that you can talk enough about on a series of episodes, a show, for instance. Not the kind of work that you can sum up in an awakening experience episode or this meditative introspective episode. It's not even an experience you can sum up in your own head, in your own life, in your own conversations, in your own relationships. But really, it's a non-linear experience that is like learned. So recently, I've gotten a lot more serious about my use of kombucha for mental health, clarity, calm, sleep, stress relief. And what's great about this is I can take it any time of the day that I'm just going. But this isn't the kind of emotional anxiety that you would see in like normal life. This is like, it's kind of like all of our lives. For instance, we've had the nervous twitch, right? We've had to remind ourselves to do a meditation, to be guided into a process, whether it was with in our own selves, with introspection, sleep, if you can manage to ever get sleep, or AI, or others, maybe communities or gurus or groups. But there are also those times where we really want to just intake and consume something that is really healthy. And back kind of during COVID, I started my TikTok. It's kind of evolved more deeply into the podcast and YouTube at this point, more deeply into communities, platforms over on Facebook, Twitter, now X. And it's kind of become a lot more deeply integrated, a lot more long form content and short form content as it is for different times. And we've been getting deeper into the understanding and awareness that comes with deciding to have major life changes. But my stance on sobriety itself has changed a great deal into the understanding of knowing that I myself am not necessarily against substance as I am against like full-on drug use. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, what I realized actually, which is very fascinating, is that I can take something like kombucha, which is a tea. It's a carbonated fermented tea that's cold, in a large bottle or a pack of bottles or cans, or one bottle at a time, or a cup. And I can drink it, and it's amazing how it kind of like will calm your gut, your nervous system. And I've learned to measure and do things like either kombucha, herbal teas, we've got green tea, we've got black tea, always on the coffee for its own health benefits, not only for the boost that it gives you, that it's so popular for, but for the cortisone lowering effects, which if you've ever had a relaxing cup of coffee, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And if you never have, it is really comforting and really nice to enjoy. And so what I've also kind of really reconciled within my own framework is that we're not really, like, in a way we are, somebody on the Joe Rogan podcast said this, we are all factories. We are all taking in some kind of substance one way or another. Now, that's not justification for things that my own values internally will disagree with for my own life, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't work for somebody else. I do have values that connect me in kind of an interesting way, because what happens is I will go into something and really look at it, and when it comes to this kind of thing, there are disconnects that I have that I no longer align with, that I no longer connect with, that will change the types of relationships I'm willing to have. So, for example, I'm not going to be talked into some sort of justification that I need to have drinks in my life, like alcoholic drinks in my life. That is not a compromise I'm willing to make in any working relationships. If that is something you do in your own personal time, away the fuck from me, that's cool. And I have no business telling you what you can and can't do when you have your family, when you're in close, to your immediate family or you personally. But you also have no business telling me that I ought to continue enjoying drinks just because either we used to, or because you think I would be more fun, or because our creative work would get like suddenly less serious, or whatever the case. So that's not something, certain things like that. Other sort of themselves, the drugs that I don't align with are things that maybe other people have learned all this work that it takes to manage, and they've gotten these benefits that really make it worth it, like THC. Not for me, a lot of work that's there to manage. I've definitely had my experience. CBD itself can get very habit forming and way too dependent. I was up to 10 gummies a day, guys, and I know I've done podcasts on CBD in the past, and it does have positive effects when it comes to things that have to do with transforming or changing, really, because I'm trying to give you the substance of what I'm saying without being too dramatic. But like, if you are transitioning into getting away from alcohol or getting away from pills, CBD an excellent go-to. But you are going to be okay. You're going to have to be okay with things like going into overdrive when it comes to being kind of depending on CBD, when it comes to depending on or like relying on it or binging it a little bit. If it's pure CBD with no THC, you're going to want to decide if you're okay with that, because it's a lot to ask of your body, it's a lot to ask of your wallet, frankly, and it's a lot to ask of yourself, and it's a lot to ask of your life. So, but if it's still better than other things, I would highly still rather you do that than the pills or the other stuff. So this is just sort of my backlog, really, that I'm recording and documenting the process of, because it's nice to know that there are things that we can use with herbs that are not necessarily, that I'm no longer necessarily angry with, or that that I've been using all my life regardless, whether I was on or using or not, like the tea and the coffee. But I'm keeping my life simple personally. Kombucha, coffee, tea, once in a while the occasional NA, once in a while the occasional, contact, high in passing of legal herbal plants, and if that includes, if that's the weed, that's cool. We've ruined the industry, and we've ruined the entire thing when it comes to like the good that any of this stuff could have produced, including things, by the way, like alcohol, like smoking, things that we would never do today if we were having to do a bunch of work to get rid of these things. We've ruined, like, maybe there's health benefits in pure tobacco that you would burn on a fire. I've been in a spiritual meeting with people virtually where they were burning tobacco leaves or discussing their experience by doing that without, like, sort of the cigarette stereotypes, who also smoke and integrate, but then as a spiritual practice do this. I'm just like to the point of whatever. And so in telling you this, I'm saying this to say that my TikTok content was me kind of reverberating my anger towards just any sort of use at all, but that I'm not necessarily, and even the podcast content on a deeper level, and YouTube to a degree as well, I'm really, really not angry with certain substances as long as they're not drugs. You know, pure legal weed that's not going to hurt anybody, pure weed. Maybe, you know, weed that's like grown is not going to hurt anybody, cool. In passing for me, because again, I don't want to complicate my life. And CBD, as far as for transition, I'm cool with as well. I understand it. I've experienced it. I get it. But for me, my go-to's still kombucha, coffee, tea, NA. I'll add that in just on occasion. But really, kombucha is even replacing NA in a real way. And the probiotics act as these chill vibes as well. When you get into that, the traces of like alcohol particles that aren't even enough to give you alcohol are amazing. And it just gives me, because like I said, all my life, our generations have been sort of raised on a lot of coping drugs. We've not learned how to be mature and use substances. We've learned to have patterns and bad habits of drugs. And so what we need to do is have a balanced approach. I even think in moderation in uses, alcohol could have been in different circumstances for people in the 80s, people now, alcohol could have been really nice in balance. I'm not even against it really. Like I was for a long time, but we've ruined it to the point where even now, like it's over advertised, but yet it's been over restricted to the point that we've rebelled. It's been over rebelled. So I've started to listen to the other story when it comes to being in the self-help out here. I've started to listen to you guys a little bit more on your mature perspective on alcohol, on your mature perspective on substances for mental health, substances for well-being. And I understand, and I've had to take years of listening to you guys. It didn't happen just by listening to one of your episodes or one of your clips or anything like that, and I didn't just automatically agree. I had to take years of my own internal work, emotional experiences to get why. And not emotional in a crying sort of like dramatic kind of Dr. Phil-esque way, but more as in the overall resentment that I've had towards drugs and alcohol. When you can see deeper, it's more about the people that are doing the drugs and alcohol and less about the well-being that these things can provide. It's more about the minds of the people. It's the people's fault, not the drugs and alcohol's fault, when you've decided to make changes in your life and get away from the people. It's the way that you've learned from others and their examples and just the shitty examples we've all grown up with, the shitty examples of drugs and alcohol and all of that are the problem. And for some of us, that just means we don't get to do those kinds of things anymore. And honestly, now that I've found different things that are a lot more simpler, I do believe in simplicity when the time is right. And for coping and just enjoyment and relaxation, calming the nervous system has become something I enjoy now with kombucha, which is a cold fermented tea. black tea, green tea, have both of them, love both of them, use both of them for boosts, herbal remedy, coffee as well. A remedy to slowly boost or quickly boost, depending on the measurement. And just enjoying my life, not having to get things that are difficult to access or expensive or prescription, or I've tried all of those things and it's just not worth it for me. But I think that we all find what works for us, and I don't want my self-help channel to be about, I don't want it to be a sobriety sort of a recovery type channel anymore. I want it to just be based on the deeper work here that we've been missing. I don't want to have this resentment and this unhealthy outlook anymore on these things, because I'm really deeply not a judgy person as long as I don't feel like I'm being judged. If I know that I'm being judged by somebody, I will outjudge that person like it's the biggest battle I've ever had in my life. But I will not judge somebody that, or not only if I'm being judged by somebody, but if you are being threatened by somebody, you definitely have the right to judge them. That's something I've had to learn as well. Just being an adult and being, not to always be paranoid, not to always be, but like even right now, for instance, my speaking has corrected itself and I just feel a lot better with things that are helping. And I always thought that, I would have had to stick with something that I didn't like in order to correct a lot of things going on in my brain. But what I found is that in really figuring out what works for you, you'll be okay with it and you'll figure out what that is. I can't tell you what that is though, and that's not what I want this channel to ever be about. So I wanted to clear that up on this episode. It's been a little bit, I've been busy, but I really did want to clear that up in this episode, that this is not a sobriety persuasive channel. This is a self-development, life design, creativity channel with, of course, our AI and adding to the experiences with all of this, by the way, with even just AI can be its own substance with as this as well. And AI has been an internalized understanding of itself that you need breaks, that you need to be outside, that you need to be away from your phone. That's AI with that kind of setup in life that it will help you do as well. So, and if all of these substances can be whatever substance you're using, for me, all of these substances here are easy, are simple to access. You can get them in enough, it's not perfect, but you can get them in enough bulk, and you can make use out of them with internal understanding that balance is key, switching between tea and coffee, switching between kombucha and coffee is key, to be honest. Especially when it comes to sleep aid, when it comes to, although I still enjoy my night coffee at times, and all of that, but including, and then, the tea being more in the day and less at night, kombucha being one or the other, depending on the awareness of my gut and nervous system and all of that, because all of this changes and is not linear. But what I will say is that this system that I have set up has an internal understanding of switching, balance, variety, sticking to the things that keep us all stable in life. And that's what I want for all of us here that listen and that have collaborated and that create here on Life is Our Reality. Because there's me, and then behind the scenes there's, my team and everything else that is a part of this family business vibe. So anyway, I hope that this makes sense for you, and I hope that this can give you the clarity that maybe I took away from you in the past, because maybe you thought it was one way and it was something else, and maybe I sort of changed my own the perception that you might have had. And So I just wanted to kind of clear things up for my own self. That's why I'm really recording this, and just document the process and share it out loud with you. So thank you so much for listening. And this includes, for myself, I'm kind of like warming up here, and not just warming up, but getting into the bigger picture of awareness as social media as a substance of community and the right levels of dopamine that actually help, believe it or not. That's a whole other thing, but dopamine itself can be very healthy and positive as well. Very reinforcement of energy, not positive in a fluffy way, but positive in a more motivational. I don't even want to use the word positive. Dopamine can be pretty motivational as a substance, and we've got to understand that relationship on a different level as well. But thanks for listening. Take care of yourself, take care of your life, take care of each other. And we're always here. We're always learning together.